So I want you to think about the answer to this in your own mind. Are you a leader today? And if you thought no, I want you to think again. Because of course, we can be leaders in our businesses and for our teams, but also if you have clients, they look to you for leadership. If you have a family, they look to you for leadership. And of course, we know that leadership doesn't have to be an official title. It can be something that we take on as appropriate, given times in our lives, different situations. When people hear the title Eat to Lead, by the way, I get a lot of scrunchy faces. I get a lot of people saying, well, how does that work? So in the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you how what you eat affects how well you can lead others. But first, I'm going to give you a description of a person, and I want you to think to yourself whether it sounds like you or someone you know. This person is working all hours of the day, always under high stress, pushing past their limits, not sleeping much, drinking vats of coffee, always exhausted, and performing anyway. They may be getting sick regularly. Maybe it's with colds, maybe it's a chronic illness, or maybe they're just getting random symptoms coming out of nowhere. Is this you or someone you know? Unfortunately, it's the story of many professionals as they log in those high-performing years. It was my story. I was that person getting random, scary symptoms coming out of nowhere. And for me, it was more concerning because before I had a career in business, I went to school for pre-medicine. And while in school, I was an exercise class instructor and a personal trainer. And then while working, I got my Taekwondo black belt, and I was doing triathlons, and I was keeping up with all the food trends. I thought I had my health habits down, but not so much. My turning point came one Thanksgiving holiday. I was the managing partner of a health club and spa in Washington, D.C., and I didn't have many holidays off, and I was really excited to see my family for this one. I remember distinctly walking down the hall of my apartment, suitcase dragging behind me, thinking about how I was going to get to Union Station and take a train and then take another train to another train and go up and down the East Coast, sleeping on multiple family guest beds. And then I realized how tired I was. And that was when I did something that I'd never done in my life. I turned around, went back home, and canceled my trip. I thought to myself, what is wrong with me? I mean, I know that family is important, vacation is important, time away from work is important. But I also knew that if I went on that trip, I was going to get sick again. I needed to find a better way. Eventually, I went to grad school. It was right around the time that science was discovering that our genes play a lot smaller role in our health than we thought. Our lifestyle plays a much bigger role in our health. And as I was studying nutrition, I was finding that the way we're being taught to eat by the media is not for health. It's definitely not for optimal performance. And when I say media, I mean news, but I also mean social media, and I mean TV and movies and books. What we're getting from them at best is a small piece of a bigger picture. And at worst, we're getting misinformation. Now, marketing will tell us that, the proper nutrition will get you six-pack abs or help you get into that bathing suit. And that may or may not be interesting to you right now. Marketing will also address health, but it's making hypochondriacs out of all of us. What you really need to know is that proper nutrition will help you to have optimal performance. It affects how you lead your businesses and your teams, and it can give your brain a cutting edge, a serious edge. So, when you eat, you have to think about what it is you're putting in to your mouth because it goes to your brain. I'm going to give you a little example here. Our brain uses 20% of the calories that we use. So, that's a lot, actually, if you think about it, because your head weighs about 10 pounds. And that's a lot less than 20% of your body weight. So relatively speaking, your brain uses a lot of energy. Have you ever been sitting at the desk all day making decisions or being creative, and then after the day is over, you feel so exhausted? Well, that's your brain using energy. And we also know that the 5 most energy-consuming activities of the brain are understanding information, memorizing information, recalling information, making decisions, and inhibiting, not doing what your first inclination is. And if you're in a leadership role, you're doing things like this all the time. We also know that our brain works best when it's fed and rested. Yep, just like the body. So you wouldn't think to bring your body to the gym and work out 10 to 15 hours a day without a little food and a little water and a little sit down, maybe. But essentially, many of us are asking that of our brains. So our brain needs food and it needs rest. And you might be thinking, well, but I can feel my body when it's tired, but I can't really feel my brain when it's tired. But your brain does give you signals when it's tired and hungry. The signals are things like not being able to concentrate as much as you usually do, maybe losing focus, losing creativity, maybe becoming a little more moody, getting angry easier, being less patient with people, feeling a little unnecessarily sad or insecure or nervous. And when your brain loses energy, it will be suboptimal until you replenish it. So you need to give it breaks, and you need to give it food, the right kind of food, ideally the kind of food that will help you do what you want to do through the day and likely into the night, and ideally for many years to come. And people ask me, well, but isn't the science of nutrition going so fast that we can't keep up? And I say, no, actually it's not. The science of nutrition is like the science of everything else. It's evolving. So there are fundamentals that we know, that we've known for decades. And they are the cornerstones on which we build our investigations, our studies. And as we investigate more, we learn more. So science of nutrition, like all science, is evolutionary, not revolutionary. But marketing would have you think otherwise. Marketing wants you to think that everything you knew about nutrition is wrong, and so you have to start back at square one. They do that because they have to get your eyes to the page so people can get paid. But there are some extremely exciting breakthroughs in nutrition today that I want to share with you, just a few, because they're motivating. They're so exciting. And they came from the fundamentals, though, that we knew before, that we're building on. One of the most exciting that I find is that we now know that with the right food and the right lifestyle, our DNA can be up to 15 years younger than our chronological age. Think about that. That is profound. DNA is the blueprint that your cells use to replicate all the cells of your body and brain. And the next exciting example I want to share is that many of the illnesses and ailments that we think or thought to be natural with aging are actually very much associated with inflammation. And we know that we can avoid inflammation, we could keep it tamped down at the very least if we have the right diet and the right lifestyle. So if you do it right, your next years of life and how you age can be drastically different than what your grandparents had or what your parents had in a really good way. And the last one I want to share is that we're we're coming to understand the gut a lot better, and our gut is fast becoming known as our second brain. Gives a whole new meaning to the term gut feeling, right? So we know that 95% of the hormone serotonin is being made in our gut. Serotonin helps us to be happy, helps us to avoid anxiety and depression, helps us to sleep better. And so when we feed our gut what makes it happy, we help ourselves to be more positive, more calm, and sleep better. So these are all good things for great leadership, right? Okay, so now you know a little bit about how food affects the brain short term and how it affects your optimal performance long term. You know some of the cutting edge science behind that now. And I'm sure you're wondering, what kinds of foods are we talking about here? That's generally the next question. And I can't actually explain that, of course, in a short talk. I can't even do it in a couple-hour consult. I tried. It really takes a book, because you need to know the fundamentals of how food works in your body and in your mind so that you can make the best decisions about yourself going forward in any given circumstance, and also so that you can build on your fundamentals as you go. But I can tell you a few things. When I was having my health issues, I was being really restrictive with food. And then when I learned how food affects the energy for not just my body, but my mind, I started pulling a lot of that food back in. So for example, I used to not eat red meat. Now, I have some high quality red meat a couple times a week. It affects my stamina in a really positive way. I also purposefully put pasta, potatoes, and bread into almost every meal because I know that it gives my brain short and long-term energy. And I also know that it doesn't cause the harm that fad diets want us to think if we eat it cleanly and in combination with other foods. And the last one I'll share is the most important, so if you don't remember anything else from this talk, you have to remember this. It's that fruit and vegetables are the magic foods. Magic. Because they have the highest density and greatest variety of vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and antioxidants. These are the things that protect your body and your brain and your DNA from breaking down. And they will help it to get younger. And we have to eat our nutrients in whole, real food form. That's how our bodies absorb it the best, not in supplement form and not in man-made food form. So now you know a little bit about the science behind how food affects your optimal performance, and you know a little bit about the kinds of food I'm talking about. So if you're going to go home and start to make a change, how are you going to do it? If you're someone who's tried dieting before and it hasn't worked, or if you're someone who knows what to do but just isn't doing it, you're not alone. 95% of all Americans who have gone on diets end up going back to what they were doing before and gain all the weight back within about 2 years. But there's good news. There is good news, and I think you're going to like this last part. We have a lot of research in terms of how we can lead ourselves to long-term dietary habit change. And it is strikingly similar to how the best leaders of today lead their organizations and corporations to long-term change. So all we need to do is practice a little good leadership skills with ourselves to help ourselves make the right dietary choices. So in closing, I'm going to give you a few examples of how that works. We know that the leaders of the fastest growing companies today are agile and flexible. They're not afraid of failure. In fact, they welcome it because they learn from it. Imagine if we did that for ourselves. If we made a mistake or failed in a diet, we took note of it, we made a change, we kept moving toward the goal. Imagine how much more relaxed, less stressed, more joy there would be in shifting your diet. Another example is we know that the best leaders know how to listen to their teams. We also know that they know how to listen to their intuition, and they can put the two together and balance them out when it comes time to making important decisions. We need to know how to listen to our bodies and our guts because they will tell us whether the food choices we're making are good. And by the way, when you practice listening to your gut reactions, you get better at hearing what it has to say about other things in life. And the last example I'll give is that we know that really good leaders help their teams to keep the big why top of mind. Big why, the purpose, the mission statement, the vision. And done right, the big why serves as a North Star. It helps people to consistently make decisions that are in line with the company values. So when we keep our big why top of mind, when making food decisions, it helps us to make decisions that are in line with our values. The most popular big whys I hear from people are that they want a strong body and a sharp mind far into the future for their families. And they want to enjoy all that life has to offer all the way to the end. And you can have that. So these are some examples of how you can use good leadership skills on yourself to make good food choices. And I'm going to challenge you to go home today and for the next week, see how many other examples you can find. Be a good leader to yourself. Take your own leadership. Now to close, I'm going to go back to my story from the beginning. At this point in time, I haven't been sick in years. I'm confident that my DNA is at least 15 years younger than my chronological age. And I use food as a big part of how I get my power and energy and stamina and focus for excellence. Now, you can put anything into your body and feed your brain anything and keep going, really. Or you can gain a high-performance edge with healthy food habits. And that is how we eat to lead.